Warhammer 40k is something that, much like its own setting, is constantly at war with itself over the littlest of changes. I'm confidently someone who believes that the more you double down on what made your product or universe famous, the better it's going to be. Sometimes not expanding your universe in ways that don't make sense is the way to go. Not everything needs to be for everybody. We've seen plenty of products and franchises get modern audience in the past. It never works out quite the way you want it to either. In Warhammer's case though, one website called Wargamer is trying to push the idea that Warhammer fans are powerless to stop the change. And Wargamer also believes that the inclusion of female custodies, which ruins the lore of an established faction, is a good thing in the long run, but it's far stupider than that too, as you will see. In case you somehow don't know, quick lore dump to catch you up real quick. In April 2024 or so, Games Workshop's new 10th edition Adeptus Custodes Codex included a short story featuring the very first female custody, which was referred to as she and her pronouns, and then this marked the first officially confirmed female Adeptus Custodi in 40k lore pretty much. GW even replied on social media as seen here to a fan famously, which reads, "There have always been female custodians since the first of the 10,000 were created." This made a lot of people angry because it was clear that Warhammer was modern audiencing themselves for a new player base, which was also happening to Star Wars, Marvel, DC, pretty much everywhere, let's be real. And I always found it funny that they claim that female Adeptus Custodes existed, since the beginning, I guess. Because if they did, nobody really heard about them until right now. It also implies that these so-called female versions never achieved anything of note to be written about for decades in the lore either. So they just kind of existed apparently in the background, doing and achieving nothing, until suddenly, conveniently, when the Force is suddenly female is being pushed, and around this same time where Marvel was failing to make all their movies and properties female focused now, that's suddenly also totally not a coincidence at all, don't point that out, that female custodies, they existed too, of course, right, yes, I totally believe you. Except not at all, because this is all by design, and these people just think you're stupid. But Wargamer, which is the subject of this video, is a website that covers a lot of Warhammer stuff. Most of their content is what you would expect, and totally fine. Every now and again, though, they do something like this that stirs the culture war pot ever more, which is titled, "The battle over Warhammer 40k's female custodies is over, and we all won." Ah yes, let's go with the medium, come on guys, we all won in the end, right? Except not really at all, did we? As Wargamer says in their opening here in the article, which I highlighted for you, they are delighted by the sight of female custodies, but they also apparently believe that they are not surprised, as they say there, by how small and feeble the so-called minority was who were complaining about the new female heads on some of these models. Small and feeble, is it? Interesting, because all I see is people saying that it's really stupid. I mean, okay, you could call that an echo chamber, I guess. Let's go look at the official statistics on the Warhammer official YouTube channel, shall we? As we can see here, where the female custodies were announced officially via the dislike bar there, we got 2,400 likes and about 12,000 dislikes. I don't know, man, that doesn't seem like a minority to me. It seems like the minority are the ones that like it, actually. That instead seems like a vast majority of the people who actually watched and interacted with the official release video of new custodies were overwhelmingly in the negative in terms of reception. And also, if you enjoy the content, consider subscribing and like the video, it helps a lot. But what I also hate about a lot of these articles these days, from these usual websites, is how it's so obvious they all lean a specific way when it comes to literally everything. And they also try to rewrite history while hoping that you don't notice. But what was interesting to me is where the author just tells on themselves at this part, which reads, "Would it surprise you to learn that I, the author of an article clearly in favor of the new female custody models, thinks the retcon that added them to the background was inelegant. It was worksman-like storytelling, well below the quality that makes the best Horus Heresy books so remarkable. But like most people in the hobby, I'm a grown-up who recognizes that my sense of the best way to tell the story is never going to dictate the Games Workshop's business decisions." So you admit that the change was stupid and done poorly, but you accept it anyways because in your own way of putting it, you know that you can't change nothing and just accept things as they are. That's a defeatist way of looking at the world if you ask me. The sort of people who might get upset about policies being changed or things getting worse in the world, but they also just struggle instead of speaking about what they truly think so that they don't get dogpiled by those around them. The whole article speaks like someone who has a gun to their back, loaded and ready to fire if they so much as so step out of line. It doesn't come across as someone who can reasonably actually speak their mind openly. You're telling me that the entire Warhammer website, with its vast majority of staff all fluent in Warhammer, none of them have a problem with this change at all. They all coincidentally accept the same opinions and changes as gospel conveniently in order to ensure that none of the staff there has an original thought of their own. Like, it comes off as cultish. There's no way that everyone agrees with a change universally. In a healthy society and hobby, there would at least be a few articles or a video or two where editors would sit down discussing the changes and why it works and why it doesn't. But much like games media today, nuance is lost completely, and every website is essentially just the same person with the same opinions cloned 30 times all over, speaking and typing the same rhetoric forever. Look at any gaming website right now. Nobody who works in games speaks in any sort of tone that makes you believe that they are anything but a monolith that thinks and believes the exact same politics and systems and beliefs to a T. It's like IGN, right? Back in the day, I'm talking early to mid 2000s, IGN had actual real nuance to their website. They used to discuss things and actually talk about video games and combat each other. They even employed people like Colin Moriarty, who was an outspoken conservative man who worked in games media. Back then, IGN and other outlets actually allowed for diversity of thought to exist within their halls. These days, it's not like that at all. They even omitted Colin from like the Podcast Beyond anniversary because he's conservative. So, it was fine back then, but now it isn't. Like, you know what I mean? Everybody now is just the same person pretty much. Every thick-rimmed glasses editor believes the exact same ideologies, the same political beliefs, and the same everything across every single website and every single publication. There is nothing unique whatsoever anymore about anything that any of these people say because it's all the same and they know it, and you can't deny that either. Which is why a lot of media websites, whether it's Wargamer, GameSpot, IGN, you can name any of them, they are all entirely interchangeable when it comes to their beliefs and their opinions. Like I said, it's like they're the same person. There is no diversity of thought anymore, because to have an opinion that is different is akin to a declaration of war. And that is how I feel reading any article written by anyone that's in a position on some website or then some who is in favor of such changes like the female Adeptus Custodes or really anything else. It's the same when a games journalist will shrug their shoulders when entire franchises get ruined to appeal to a modern audience. They never speak on that. They just kind of go, oh, it is what it is. Right? None of these people are able to speak their actual beliefs anymore, because to have any slight of nuance or change in any way how they speak, they're just apparently siding with the enemy now. Instead, every article is just a nothing piece of work, a pointless declaration that inevitably comes to the same conclusion that I support the current thing, and not much of anything else really. This is why so many websites have lost their audiences to people on YouTube or Twitch and many more. At least when it comes to content creators, for the most part, they at least will speak their minds. Whether it's in a good way or a way that you agree or disagree with, it really doesn't matter. At least they're having different opinions. Of course, there are certain content creators who are still neutral on everything and never step out of their line. They know who they are, and it's pretty obvious to tell who they are too. The real people setting trends are the ones that actually have something to say and are not, and this is key, afraid to say it. I don't care if some website hates me for how I speak, at least I'm willing to stand on what I say instead of just parroting what the entire Monolith says. It's not interesting, is what I'm trying to say. When Wargamer writes an entire article that can be summarized as, yes, I support the current changes so I can keep my job, and so that my so-called colleagues don't throw me under the bus for disagreeing with them, yeah, it's gonna come off as hollow every single time. It's pointless because there's nothing being said that feels original there. This is why so much of journalism is garbage these days. Everybody's afraid to offend someone else. But this is how things die, when all you have pretty much are voices parroting the same beliefs 24/7 and then getting mad when their opinions are met with pushback and backlash because the audience has nothing in common with them, because these people are critically out of touch and they know it, but they can't admit it. Like, this whole article just reads like, I like female custodians because if I don't, my entire community will pretty much crucify me. It sounds, like I said, like you're standing on the edge of a plank with a gun to your spine more than really anything else. Hilariously, this Wargamer article keeps proving that the implementation of such forced element is being met with nothing but purity tests and outright hostility from the people that have been tasked with cultivating these booming communities. Like, look at this here where I highlighted it. That even the r/Adeptus Custodes subreddit has issued a no warning ban on anyone who speaks ill against female custodes. Wow, what a totally free place to speak about your love of that certain faction, guys. Oh sure, you're absolutely welcome to join this subreddit as long as you agree with everything we say, close your mouth, and mind to any sort of opinion outside of the zeitgeist and completely bow your head so low that you're basically kissing our feet, then sure, you're good to be here. But if you say anything critical or even remotely constructive against the female custodes, you're banned immediately. These people are insane. How you added that to your article, not thinking that it doesn't come off as extreme cult-like behavior is crazy to me. Or maybe you know it is that way, but again, you're too afraid to speak out against it, so that's just how it is these days for these sorts of people. But all these guys have been so brainwashed and accustomed to having no original thoughts of their own that the sheer hubris of someone having a belief system outside of their own causes them to just go into full-blown meltdown and start screaming like kids. But don't worry guys, as seen here, it's totally fine. Just go to the anti-woke, as they say, subreddits that Wargamer spotlights in a negative light as seen here in this paragraph. Right, of course, they're toxic because their opinion doesn't align with yours. Of course, that's how it works, right? Like, you see what I mean? They're telling on themselves. You're immediately toxic if you don't accept the cult monolith belief system. You're totally good and a great person, by the way, as long as you 100% adhere to everything they believe to a T and never one step out of line. How you people don't realize that you are in a cult is crazy to me, but the likelihood is they do know that they're in a cult, but they also refuse to admit it because to admit it would result in them being thrown in with the spooky anti-woke crowd apparently. Oh, you mean like normal people? That's the crowd you don't want to be a part of anymore. You'd rather be associated with the absolute insane people who will tear you limb from limb, ban you pretty much everywhere if you ever speak your mind, than the people who welcome, oh, I don't know, something called freedom of expression. It's all, like I said, echo chambers of censorship. If you're not allowed to criticize something while other things are allowed to be criticized openly, that's by design. And also likely because the things not allowed to be criticized control that space with an iron fist. These people are the same types of weirdos who will eat grasshoppers and worms and look you dead in the eye and say, yeah bro, these grasshoppers are so good and yummy. Did you know they have more protein than chicken? And you just have to treat these pod people like the NPCs they are, okay? That is how civilization dies. Where the people are so brainwashed and defeated subconsciously that they're unable to even push back because they've never known anything else. Wargamer should feel embarrassed by this article, but sadly, it doesn't even end there, because this is probably one of the other stupidest articles coming up next that perfectly encapsulates the absolute state of modern media and why it's so downright moronic. This article is titled, and I am not joking, I'm a woman who's never played Warhammer 40k and female custodies make me want to start. You're probably already asking questions like, wait a second. No, it gets worse, guys. Let me read you the opening paragraph, and again, this is 100% real, by the way. I am totally not trolling you, I promise, but here, it reads, I don't play Warhammer 40k. There are many reasons why, despite working for a website literally called Wargamer, I've avoided it. But dang, do those new Adeptus Custodes models look cool. The fierce brows, the mighty mohawks, and glorious golden armor mark the first time that I've seriously wanted to join in with the war game, and it's 100% because they're women. What did I just read there? So like, wait a second, okay? You work for Wargamer. That's a website wholly devoted to Warhammer 40k as a hobby. But you openly admit that you don't play Warhammer and you don't engage with this hobby. What are we doing, guys? Why is this person even employed on your website? This would be like someone on Nintendo Life having an article saying, I don't play Nintendo games. And then they admit they've never touched a Zelda or Mario game in their life, but let them tell you why Zelda is a feminist icon anyways. This article existing unironically on Wargamer is all I need to know that this site is being ran by crazy people. Or maybe it's a masterful troll. If it is, hey, well done to you guys. But if this is supposed to be taken seriously, we have lost the plot. Like, dude, let me read the second paragraph, okay? Look at this. Warhammer 40k is many things, but at its most obvious, it's a power fantasy. When you ignore its more satirical elements, it's a setting where you play act as one of the most powerful creatures in the galaxy, a literal perfect superhuman. It's also an overwhelmingly male power fantasy where your muscles are enormous, your emotions are surgically removed, and the only real relationships that matter are ones of brotherhood. Okay, this has got to be a troll. First, you have this lady admit that she doesn't engage with anything Warhammer. Then she goes ahead and admits that Warhammer is overwhelmingly about brotherhood and being, and this is her words, a male power fantasy. Like, am I being trolled? Because this is what it feels like to me, dude. Look how they contradict themselves. Oh my god, dude. Like, look at this third paragraph. Let's read it. That's fine. No complaints from me there. Women can enjoy a good old-fashioned power fantasy as much as the next gender. Plenty of us enjoy having muscles and killing Tyranids too. It is a little off-putting when that fantasy's most important factions have a literal sign out that says no girls allowed. What are you talking about? You just admitted in the paragraph before this one that Warhammer is a predominantly male power fantasy where the only things that matter is brotherhood. Those were your words. Then you turn it it around, forget everything you just say, and say actually this is bad because no girls are allowed, which nobody said by the way, but you then fully admit that the entire point of why this series resonates is because of its male-centric tone. Do these people have brain damage? Because this sounds like someone who has brain damage that's been writing this. And the fact that it was okayed to release on Wargamer of all places, that is crazy, man. Sure, Warhammer is a male power fantasy, but it sucks that women aren't allowed. Never mind that there's, I don't know, other factions filled with nothing but women that people love and want to see more of, by the way. But nah, we don't want those ones. We want to be a part of like these other factions instead. I can't even speak anymore. My God, dude. Like, I'm just gonna say it, man. We're in an everwar with people with IQ levels that are in the dangerously low parts. Like, they can't be serious here. How do you contradict yourself like this? So expertly, by the way, and not realize that you are proving yourself wrong with every word that you type. This would be like me saying, yes, Barbie is a female brand, but here's why Barbie actually needs to turn the main Barbie into a man. Like, I'm amazed by everything I'm reading here. It's honestly incredible. But look here, as I highlighted, apparently the reason why they like female custodies is because they see themselves in it and their own version of femininity. Is that femininity, though, in the room with us right now? Because these female custodies, they look like men with just long hair, and there's honestly nothing feminine about them at all. What women do you know that are 9 feet tall who are also able to tear steel doors off their hinges and punch people like they're the Hulk? Honestly, there's probably like 3 or maybe 5 of those women in existence right now living, and they probably all live in like Russia somewhere in like a remote village probably. Why do you want representation where you know, like in your heart, that it makes no sense? This would be like me watching Black Panther and going, sure, it's about black people, but man, why can't the king of Wakanda be white? Where's the diversity, you know? Because it's in Wakanda, obviously. I have to just convince myself that the people who write these articles are either trolling or they honestly have no idea what they're talking about. Again, I'm not going to claim I'm some Warhammer lore expert, I admit that fully, but dude, even I know what this lady is saying is pure idiocy. Idiocy. It's idiocy. I can't speak today. Let's keep going. Someone come look at this, okay? Like, look at these next 2 paragraphs, all right? They admit then that they know that the Sisters of Battle exist, but it's not what their power fantasy looks like to them. They then say in that second paragraph there that sure, yes, the Adeptus Xoriatus are the female equivalent to what women want in this setting, but you don't like them because they have boob armor, as you put it. Then just paint the Sister of Battle like gold, I guess, or take the, you know, the other head models off the other female characters and put them somehow on the Sisters of Battle's bodies and you're good. Do whatever you want there, but you don't need to hijack an entire other faction because you're greedy. The writer then goes on a tirade how they want to be a big bulky warrior with like a mohawk and how these miniatures are giving them a choice. And yes, they are starting to get somewhere with their argument until later on. They bring up the fact that they feel omitted from the group when they go to these hobby shops in real life. But you just said in the beginning, dude, that you don't even play Warhammer. So why does this matter to you then? If nothing that existed prior was going to get you into the hobby, why would you care now if it only because it conveniently now fits your narrative? Like here in this paragraph, okay, where they ended with they do not belong there as a woman. Literally no man ever wouldn't want more women in his hobby of choice. But all men are asking is that you don't try to hijack the hobby and then turn it into something that it was never intended to be in the first place. Men don't do that to you in your, like, you know, your spaces. So why are you trying to do that to them? All these guys want is respect. Like, women are always talking about respect, but when they have to give respect, suddenly it's a hard thing to do. Why is that? They then bring up this concept of scene here that when no women are in the room, that sexist ideas get made. Again, what are you talking about? Every feminist icon character you women championed was created by men. Wonder Woman, the most famous female superhero in the world, that was made by a man. Tomb Raider, you know, Lara Croft, made by men. Princess Peach, made by old nerdy Japanese guys. Same thing with Samus from Metroid, and many of the greatest female superheroes in Marvel, from the X-Men like Storm and Rogue, hell, even Mary Jane Watson with Spider-Man. Guess what? All made by men too. It's actually when women write female characters that the so-called sexist tropes end up coming out. Because remind me again who wrote She-Hulk for Disney+. Alright, a bunch of women, and they had her shallow and vapid, and unironically unironically twerking with Megan Thee Stallion in that show too. That's a real thing that happened, by the way. So remind me who writes the smut, like the smut novel stuff and the nonsense, like the Twilights or the 50 Shades of Grey, where women are constantly being dominated by men all the time in those books. All right, it's women. What I'm getting at here is you don't understand what you're saying. I mean, the Wargamer lady. All the best female characters are pretty much written by men, and women love them. And all the characters you look down upon as poor representation of women were written by women. This is why I can't take these arguments seriously, because it's not that they're based in wrong thing per se. They're just being made by people who clearly do not understand anything or how the world works. It's like when women say they have to wear makeup and dresses and high heels for men, and this somehow means that men are oppressing them, when in reality, no, you're wearing makeup and more to impress the other women around you. Like, be honest with yourselves. Every man is far more attracted to their girlfriends when she's in PJs than a dress, because it's the real her that's in front of him. You are living in a delusion of your own making that is being pushed by people that don't want to see you win in the first place, and you are allowing their ideas to create a mental mind prison around your own psyche. You are being conditioned through controlled programming to be a loser by design by people who don't care about you, and you need to break free and see the world for what it really is, because none of this is healthy. This entire push by Warhammer's so-called fans or not is utter nonsense. They either agree with anything considered politically correct so they don't get ostracized, or they come up with make-believe stories like this lady at Wargamer did to spin a sob story instead. Again, she admitted she doesn't even engage with Warhammer 40k, yet somehow writes for the website that covers nothing but Warhammer 40k. Make it make sense. It's the absolute peak of Mount Rushmore WTF if I ever saw one. And oh yeah, sure, I write for Apple products. Oh, what's that? No, I've never touched an Apple product in my life. What are we doing, guys? Same thing. I think if I go any further, we're all going to start developing brain damage. So what do you guys think? Is the cultural zeitgeist of today so unbelievably cooked that nuance and individuality no longer seemingly exist, or can this be repaired? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and by God, never let these people cook again.